You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to V.A.C. Roundtable number 33. This was going to be our discussion considering VSOs and your benefits. Basically, we have a full cadre of inexperienced and experienced people here to talk about our discussion tonight. And I would like to thank our council members, Aaron Pluff, Michael Green, Brian Buckley, George Armstrong, Michael Crowitz, or George Armstrong II, and Pearson Kennedy Crosby for joining us tonight. I am Etienne Fontan. I will be your moderator this evening. As we start off this discussion, we're going to be talking initially about veteran service organizations. So if you are not a veteran and wondering what a VSO, that's what a VSO means. It's a veteran service organizations. And these organizations were mostly created by veterans for benefit veterans because of issues regarding separation from becoming a United States soldier. Be it no matter what armed forces you were in or you joined, you're basically upon exit given an opportunity to file for your benefits. But at the same time, since it is such a confusing navigation in the terms of which VSO do I join? Do I have to join a VSO? You know, there's ones that are popular almost in every town USA. You have an American Legion or a Veterans of Foreign Wars. And those organizations are there for veterans to help and assist them with your selection and paperwork. So initially, I got out of my service from the military, and you have given a choice depending on if you serve in combat or not of veteran service organizations you can belong to. The American Legion services both combat and regular veterans, as well as the Veterans for Foreign Wars is specifically for those that are been in theater. And the theaters are basically listing by the government, such as I served in the Southeast Asia theater for the Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So they basically centrify it around a world region from the Vietnam War all the way to our GWAT, the Great War on Terror, as that is known as, or the Greater War on Terror. So when we refer to GWAT, that's what we're referring to as well. So I happen to have a VFW right at the end of the block there in Morgantown, West Virginia. So for me, that was a natural thing for me to go down to that VSO. So for me, it was a shock to the system in the sense of when I went in there, it was mostly World War II guys. And they were sitting there arguing over how many days they had spent in Europe. Apparently that was a test of manhood in length, was their how many days in service. And so after watching these two guys argue over that, and also seeing that the bar was serving dollar shots and 75-cent drafts, I realized that I could sit and drink all day, but did I really want to do so with these two guys? And I wasn't really feeling it. So, that was kind of inadvertently my way of selecting a VSO. So, let's go on over to who would like to start tonight. How did you select your VSO initially? Anyone? I will start then with Brian Buckley.
The first time when I went through, I think I literally just and this is as I'm transitioning out of the military, I think it was like the first door that was open. It wasn't like I sat there and did research on the difference between a VFW or American Legion or whoever. And I think I went through the American Legion. But just to answer this quickly, I mean, I had no science or anything behind it, so I don't know if anyone else did. Want me to add anything else to that, or wait until we?
We'll wait. We'll wait for the next part of that. I was just kind of going through and selecting. George Armstrong, the George Armstrong.
I did not. So I'm like you, Etienne. I am going to be listening a lot, but I never applied for any benefits upon exiting, and it's all foreign to me.
All right, Delta Council Member Pluff.
Well, as you guys know from talking with me, I was always looking for somebody that knew more than me. So going up to Long Beach, there's an office of the VSOs, and it was essentially wait in line and go to whoever opened up first. And I happened to get this guy named Jose Barola from Long Beach with the DAV, and he was the VSO Officer of the Year. And so I kind of had a nice easy track, and it was just convenience. But it was up at the Long Beach VA.
Right on. Thank you, Council Member. Council Member Crosby.
Well, I originally, my first VSO service officer that I chose was also the DAV. I gotta give Puff Daddy a shout out. He really pushed me to get all this stuff in as soon as I got out, which was extremely helpful. But I went to the DAV. DAVs are located there. There's a DAV office in every regional office, the VA regional office. So there's a lot of benefits to going to a DAV that is located in the regional office, because they can just walk down the hall and pull records or discuss a situation with a VA employee. So that's where I went to. It was an easy drive for me back in Philadelphia, and I was lucky enough to sit down with a Marine that I knew from high school. So it was a great experience with the Philadelphia DAV and the regional office.
Right on. Michael Green, Council Member.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I was clueless then, and I'm probably still clueless now. I had no idea that when you got out, you could go to a VSO office and get some help with your benefits. All I want to do was gas up my car and get the hell off the base, buy a cheap pack of cigarettes on the route. I've never availed myself until very recently of what might be related to a VSO, and that's the Virginia Department of Veterans Affairs, which is a support organization. But I got into school, got my VA loans and those things on my own. And I guess a little bit later, we'll trip into what benefits I've taken advantage of medically, and, kind of self-seeking, if you will, or the result of a self-search. I had no idea that you should go someplace and get some assistance. No clue. God knows what I lost, right?
Right. I know that's a frustration that I'm finding out as well. So it's definitely one of those situations where, we see what we can do. Council Member Crowitz, to you, sir.
Thank you, Etienne. Yeah, I actually went to a state office when I got out of the military. It was the Virginia State Department of Veterans Affairs. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was the American Legion was staffing the office. So it was the American Legion, the VSO I was working with. But it was definitely the Virginia Department of Veterans Affairs. And each state has their own Department of Veterans Affairs that's within the state. That's not a federal entity. That's a state-run entity that's in the same office generally, I think always, as the governor. It's at the governor's level and in the governor's general executive branch, I guess, of the state. They actually helped me quite a bit. I wound up fighting for many years to get the benefits that I should, rightfully get. And in fact, in the end, it was such a crazy thing because I wound up just putting in a correction form in the end and no appeal or anything, just the correction form. They had me down on two different codes that were applicable to my disability. And one would lead to one outcome and one would lead to another outcome. And all they did was just say, hey, why don't you look at the other outcome potentially as a correction form? And to my amazement, they accepted that. And a couple of days later, I had my rating fixed. So it's been like that, like 10 years pounding on the wall and then just turn the key. Kind of weirdness.
It is strange like that. I've heard success stories, but myself, I'm looking forward to being one into the future. Next would be Wade Laughter. Thank you for joining us, Wade.
Oh, thank you, Etienne, for the invite, and really nice to see you guys again. Yeah, when I got out of the Navy in 1974, and for a variety of reasons, yeah, the VA veteran service organizations that I encountered in North Carolina, people who served during that time were losers. I heard conversation about how we lost Korea, that World War II was really the last time we won, and Vietnam was another black eye to the country. And as someone who served then, I didn't want to hear that. And yeah, no, I never much looked back on what VA or veteran service organizations might offer to me until I became more aware of the number of veterans who are killing themselves as a result of trauma of one sort or another that's happened in their service to this country. And I love this country, and I joined the military. I joined the Navy to stay out of the Army because I would have been drafted. I had a high draft number. I was part of the draft lottery generation. And anyway, yeah, I think that the potential for support to veterans that's available through veteran service organizations is why this topic is really important. So thanks for rolling it out today. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot because, like I said, I never really looked back on what was available as a veteran. It's only recently I've publicly identified myself as a veteran, actually. So on that note, I'll go down to listening, and thank you.
Well, blessings and thank you for joining us. Needless to say, it's always an honor to share time with you. And yeah, I'm learning too, because why am I learning? Well, I'm learning because I was basically kicked out of the VA for discussing cannabis. And it was one of those situations that after being removed from 4 different VA facilities, and then I am also considered a Gulf War syndrome, or now called Gulf War illness veteran, because I had to file through 3 different veteran service organizations through the VA to get my benefits, or just to get that letter. And my stuff got lost 3 different times. So, I understand there's success stories, but there's also those non-success stories. We have one more council member who joined us this evening, Council Member Al Byrne. Al, how did you select your VSO?
Well, you know, I'm a different category than most of you guys because I'm a lifer. So after 24 years, I retired and they put me in what was Champus, now is TRICARE for life. So guys like me go where the hell we want, and I do. I, of course, over my time have counseled or worked with a lot of vets that use the VA system. And my experience listening to them has been kind of bifurcated. It's like some of these guys have a great experience, some of it sucks. I've said before on this meeting group that I really do believe it. In my limit, I did this for 4 years. So in those 4 years, my consciousness and the guys I worked with, the counselors I work with, every one of them was a combat Vietnam veteran, concluded that it was the individual VHA facility that either excelled or did not. And the only thing we could determine that why was that possible? Well, it had to be management, the CO, or something like that. But that's all that I can add to that, ETN. I would like to say something that Wade popped into my mind. When we were doing this work, and I was working, I was getting paid about 20% of my salary, I think, was the Veterans Administration. The rest of it was the Agent Orange program that us vets went through. Anyway, when we were working, we discovered, me and the other consular vets, that I don't want to lay a number out that seems too weird. So I'm just going to say somewhere at least 40% of the vets that we were working with who had post-traumatic stress from their military experience, and we work with guys from ETN's era down into Central America, all over the place. 40% of these guys had some sort of post-traumatic stress experience before even joining the military. So, you know, what we were dealing with was we had guys that had been beat up by their stepfathers or been run over by a train. I mean, you can't, I can tell you stories and I don't want to. I just want you to put that in your consciousness, that when we're dealing with us, veterans, keep in mind that a lot of us, I'm saying 40, it could have been higher, guys. We were pretty fucked up before we ever got fucked up.
No, that's a good point, and one that I think is lost, except to those that work directly with veterans and help and assist. So needless to say, that's quite a situation, and the numbers are staggering. And yeah. So right now I'm going to actually play a video because as I gave a testimony on my situation, that I was removed from 4 different VA facilities just for mentioning my cannabis use. And it's not in my records, but the last time I left, they told me to go away and don't come back. I got a copy of my records. That was the 4th time that was in Washington, D.C. So where it's now oddly legal. So you can imagine my surprise a few weeks ago when all of a sudden this appeared in my email inbox.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sit Rep. As many of you are aware, several states in the U.S. have approved the use of marijuana for medical and or recreational use. In the eyes of the federal government, marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance and still legal. However, a veteran's participation in state marijuana programs does not affect eligibility for VA care and services. So, 8 things veterans need to know about marijuana and the VA are: 1, veterans are encouraged to discuss marijuana use with their VA provider. 2, your VA provider is not allowed to recommend or prescribe marijuana for medical purposes. 3, your VA provider will document your use of marijuana in your medical records, but all clinical information is confidential and protected. 4, VA providers cannot complete paperwork or forms required for veterans to participate in state-approved marijuana programs. 5, VA pharmacies cannot fill prescriptions for, and VA will not pay for marijuana for medical purposes. 6, veterans who are VA employees are subject to drug testing under the terms of their employment. And again, and most importantly, 7, veterans will not be denied VA benefits because of their use of marijuana. There are additional policies VA has regarding the use of marijuana for medical and or recreational purposes, which can be found by visiting the web link in the video description below. You can also view VA's full directive on this topic, VHA Directive 1315, by use of the same web link. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when that appeared, needless to say, in my inbox, and seeing such a piece come out really brought tears to my eyes from the many years of frustration and anger, and seeing my fellow brothers and sisters struggle to help each other. To see this finally come out is pretty groundbreaking. So now we're going to move into our discussions centering around some of our experiences. We're going to give you 3 different experiences of 3 different generations of veterans. We're going to start off with Vietnam veteran Michael Green. Council member.
Thank you, Etienne. Much like Wade, for years I did not identify myself voluntarily as a veteran. If it came up, I would add to it. I didn't walk around with a baseball cap with Navy all over it, or references to my service in Vietnam. I was an electronics technician. Like Wade, I wound up enlisting because I didn't want to go in the Army. I wound up doing 6 years as an electronics technician. I spent the better part of 3.25 years in Vietnamese waters, coastal brown waters, as well as a little bit of time on land, but not a whole lot, not operationally 2 or 3 times, doing repair work consistent with being an electronics technician, not in combat. When I got out, like I said, filled up the tank of gas, bought a couple packs of cigarettes or carton maybe, and took off. That was it. I didn't want to look back. Some years later, while I was living in Tucson, Arizona, I used to go water rafting with a guy that was very heavily engaged in veteran services with the VA facility up there, which was reputed to be a pretty good facility. He kept encouraging me to reach out, contact the VA, get myself registered for future health care, maybe down the years. That was advice I didn't take. I was still kind of reluctant to get heavily involved in anything that was related to the service or veterans. Not that I wouldn't acknowledge somebody's service if I knew about and thank them with them. I took that on pretty early and still do. And that's in some ways how I've gotten closer to numerous men and women over the last 15 or 20 years. It's finally coming home to me. In 2013, I found myself very uncomfortable one evening, went to see the doctor, and the next day, next thing I knew, I was in a hospital getting a couple of stents. Ischemic heart disease. I was out of the hospital in 48 hours, pretty much doing fine thereafter. And then 2 years later, in a conversation, I discovered that was a compensable disability, Agent Orange. What I know. I'd never, like I said earlier, never been to a VSO. I had no idea who you reached out to, but as a former attorney, now having a computer, I just went to the VA, typed in some things, wound up making a phone call, got some forms in the mail, filled them out, was able to obtain copies of my medical records from the VA. Within 60 days, I had determination that I had 10% permanent disability. Okay, fair enough. A couple of things occurred to me, and I'll just throw these out. why the hell wouldn't the VA tell me? The Veterans Administration sent a letter or general public service announcement informing people exposed to Agent Orange, and I had no idea what my exposure level was till I looked it up, that there are certain conditions that are tied to Agent Orange exposure, for example. A heads up may or may not have prevented my condition. I'm not saying it would have, but it would have made me a little bit more aware that I should be paying attention to maybe a specific list of diseases. A couple of years ago, was it March of 20? I found myself ill after eating some Chinese food, just had some a moment ago, wound up seeing my doctor. After going back 3 times that week, finally put on a glove and determined that maybe I wasn't sure it was causing my initial illness, but just thought he would check me and found a nodule on the right side of my prostate. And in conversation within a week, someone else mentioned me. So this is a private physician. I'm not using the VA at this point. Suggests to me, Michael, prostate cancer, Agent Orange condition. Who would have thought? But again, right, it would have been nice to know. At that point, I availed myself of 2 private opinions from doctors, and then decided, I might as well check the VA. I'm applying for a disability, going to check with the VA and see what I could come up with. I wound up going to Richmond. I met a doctor there, Dr. Michael Chang, who teaches, who's the head of the department, urology department there, radio urology. Nice guy. He walked me through it. And by the time I was done, I was convinced the treatment he was going to offer me made more sense than the treatment offered by these 2 other private practice physicians in Charlottesville, Virginia. So that's how I proceeded. Interestingly enough, I now have another condition. So my prostate has shrunk. Whether or not I still have the cancer, I don't know. And I have a disability that's 100%, it's temporary. I think that disappears about the time that I'm no longer having urinary tract problems. Don't know whether that will or not happen. I now have another set of issues, in this case, a renal cancer. I don't mean to discuss my whole personal medical thing here. I'm not looking for sympathy, empathy, or anything else. Only to find that I could have the VA treat that, and I had an opportunity to make a choice. And again, I called the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, who I think have been very supportive. They helped me fill out the paperwork on the Agent Orange thing. Went real fast. I did learn if you call in and ask for forms, tell them you're intent on filing, because that's when they start the date. Was not able to get anything retroactive on the heart or on the prostate. But I was able to, through the VA, get an agreement that I would be treated locally in Charlottesville, Virginia, through the University of Virginia Medical Center, rather than having to go to Richmond and spend my time there and several nights in the hospital. I can get this done locally and at home, which I think pretty cool, which just started to open my eyes up to what I've heard discussed as a choice program that exists out there in communities. I don't know if you have to have a particular distance from a VA facility to qualify for that, but there are obviously lots of avenues and corridors to walk down. And I would not for a moment complain about the quality of my care. That I happen to be a white guy, former attorney, some part-time judge once upon a time, whether that somehow flows into how I'm received. And I'm pretty fucking personable. We all know that, right? Whether or not that flows into it or not, I don't know. I will tell you, I see fellow service members, our brothers and sisters at the VA's hospitals, and it would bring me to tears sometimes. Just the condition of so many people's conditions. And that, that's difficult. But again, personally, I have very little complaint with the VA. I found veterans, again, Virginia's Veterans Department of Veterans Services very, very helpful. And I found everything was accessible. And I found to date, the quality of my care has been as good as anything I've received privately over the years. That's what I can testify to.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thank you.
Hoping for the best for you, Michael. We all are rooting on you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that goes without saying. Second is me. I'm Etienne Fontan. I am a Gulf War veteran. I was with the West Virginia Army National Guard. And I went literally from college to the front lines in the spans of way too short a time. And needless to say, I also came back in just about as much of a whirlwind from my war. I sustained some injuries, was medevac to Germany, and then when I got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, for them to release me back to the National Guard, it was really a kind of a strange blur, because I had to go see these people for my benefits. I had to go listen to these people talk about benefits. I had checked out. I was not thinking about myself. I was not thinking about my benefits. I was not thinking about my needs or what I had to would deal with. I was just thankful just to have survived that experience, come out actually walking, and just I wanted to just be back in college and back with my friends and back on the street. And I didn't pay attention. I didn't listen to what was going on. And I found that it's common to a lot of service members when towards the end, as you phase out, they tell you about your benefits. They give you briefings about your benefits. However, a lot of people just aren't paying attention. It's just one of those things that for some reason you don't think about then before it's too late. Needless to say, when it comes to your benefits, it's a very steep learning curve. It's the Army tried at Fort Campbell, but between my PTS and wanting to be home, I just nodded to whatever they asked of me. I was afraid of pills. My mother had mental issues and was a hypochondriac and had taken so many pills that affected her psychology. It scared me to death. My uncle was in the Navy, had a paranoid schizophrenia situation while he was on a submarine, was basically put in a rubber room for the next 10 plus years, and then released into a VA nursing home where he took these horse pills en masse every day. And the last time I saw or heard from him, he was still speaking to Ronald Reagan inside of the air conditioner. He walked away from his VA nursing home in November of 1981, never to be seen or heard from again. So my trust of the VA, needless to say, was skeptical at best. Two, I realized that I had been exposed to, between the nuclear, biological, and chemicals, we lived under these oil fires. I actually covered twice the size of Kuwait inside of Iraq. I went from literally the farthest point on the east with the French Foreign Legion through, got switched off to the another 24th Mechanized, and then set over by El Basra, pretty much the other side of the country. And across, as we went there, the oil fires were so thick. Outside of the oil fire, it was 110 to 20 degrees. Under the oil fires, it was 28 degrees. That's how thick the smoke from the oil fires were above us. You could see the sun as a small little orange speck in the sky during the day. And of course, you only knew it was night because it was black on the horizon. So I knew I had exposure. And when I came back, I started to have abdominal pains and a sudden weight loss that they could not explain. So I went to my doctor, and then I ended up being in the university hospital there at West Virginia University, of where they put me through a whole battery of tests and came back with, we don't know what's going on, which as a 21-year-old, needless to say, is not a very happy or fun sensation to be a part of. That's when you also come to realize it's called practicing medicine because they ain't mastered that shit. So by having to go through that system and finding out nothing was going for me, I started to go to the VA. And by that time, I had been out here in California, was an activist, and I started to go to the VA, and because I was with the Cannabis Action Network and as an activist, you know, I was coached on, you know, talk to the VA about your medical cannabis use, because I was using medical cannabis for my symptoms. And I did. And when I talked about it, it kind of almost felt like there were kids that put their hands over their heads and I was immediately declared what was then known as a known drug user, because I volunteered my information to the VA doctors and told them I was using cannabis for my conditions. And because that is not on the VA approved medical list, I was now considered as a non-drug user, a person who had to be highly watched, highly questioned, and I was now looked at out of a side eye for everything that I did. When I continued to talk about my cannabis use and that I want it documented, I was then physically removed. They basically called security because I would not stop talking or arguing with the doctor at the time. And to give you all kind of an instance, 80% of your doctors go through the VA system, because the doctors can get immediate residency in the VA system, which is on average of a contract, I think currently around 3 years. So if you have a long-standing condition, you're going to go through a few doctors along the way. So along the way and going through various doctors, finally in about 94, I had a doctor who pulled me aside and said, hey, I want to apologize to you on behalf of my other VA physicians. And needless to say, that took me aback. And I was like, okay. And then he proceeded to tell me that the VA had instructed the doctors to lie to us Gulf War veterans about our chemical exposure. 3 years later, I would get a 7-page dossier listing every known chemical that I was exposed to inadvertently when I was over by or going through certain areas. We cleared bunkers that would be filled with Iraqi supplies, from airplanes to bombs, etc. Once we cleared them out, as we're coming out, demolition was coming in and laying out explosives. And then as soon as we were clear, blew those bunkers up around us, and we got the fallout from all of that bomb that were there. It's very frustrating. It's very angering. And I have pictures of it. I had a 110 camera. I actually took pictures of what was going on around me. And yeah, so when I got back and having these various experiences, and my final experience was in Washington, D.C., where I was once again declared a known drug user and told not to come back. So I haven't. And shortly after, I got actually, after the 3 separate filings and losing, I finally got my letter from the VA acknowledging me as a combat veteran with Gulf War illness. So I have not done my benefits. And so part of this discussion is also me learning what to do. And I belong to Veterans for Peace. I belong to AMVETS, and I have reached out to Veterans for Foreign Wars, and I have not heard back from them in a month and a half, because I'm trying to now file for my benefits. So I'm trying after 30 years to try to see if I can get some of the realities, because I suffered also 3 heat strokes in that theater, and that has affected my body and my health at different areas. Now in my 50s, it has its effect. So I am now trying to seek what I can get. So now with the SITREP video that we just played, I feel that I will finally at least be heard past my cannabis now, since they can actually have it and document it, and I will see what I can do. So I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but my story has been a journey, and there's a lot to that journey that I want you all to understand. And I am still distrustful of the VA. They've given me right to between myself and my uncle. Yet I have needs and benefits that I may potentially be without work, and I want to be able to have health benefits, and I get those via the VA because of my Gulf War situation. So next, we're going to talk to a GWAT veteran, who is Council Member Brian Buckley, and he is going to give us an understanding of his experience.
Thank you, good sir. So I served in the Marines, and majority of my spent in infantry reconnaissance, and then as a Marine Raider, which is part of Special Operations Command. So when I got out, I was a Purple Heart recipient, and you know, I think I probably did what like 99% of every other veteran does. Just like, okay, I'm going to get my last physical. So went through that whole thing again. As I mentioned earlier, didn't really pay attention to what VSO I was going to work with or anything of that nature. And you know, I remember I went in to go meet with my doctor, and he was kind of funny. He was just like, "Oh yeah, I've trained with Recon Marines. Have you ever heard of them?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard of them." And he's like, "All right, cool." And then he like opens up my binder and he kind of looks for like 2 minutes. He goes, "Well, shit." He's like, "Why didn't you tell me what you used to do?" And I'm like, I don't know. I know it's kind of awkward, but I'm just not going to sit here and give you like my rap sheet. He goes, "All right, man, I'm going to make sure you're hooked up." And I'm like, "All right." And, you know, as we're going through, we're reviewing some things. And when I got shot in Afghanistan, it was by a grenade launcher. So shrapnel went through my body. I lost the left feeling in my left calf. So in this thing, they're saying like loss of feeling in left calf, received shrapnel in left calf. And sounds to me like very clear cut and dry, right? But this is where he's like, no, this is where words have meaning. They have to tie it to that. He's like, they totally would have ignored that. And so he's like, I'm going to put in there, has no feeling in left calf due to the shrapnel he received in combat operations. And I'm like, that's unbelievable. Kind of, you just think it's that nitpicky. So go through all that, hang out, whatever. 90 days later, you get your notification. And I come out 80% disabled. Fine. You know, see where I'm going to get paid. Great. And then I just kind of continue on with my life. And then I start seeing there's a lot of people who were at 100% disability, and I'm trying to figure out how they kind of got there. And I'm not saying anything about what people do. I mean, they were in administrative roles. They didn't really see combat action, but yet they're still walking out with 100%. And, you know, I heard one person say, well, I heard about someone in a morgue and it really freaked me out. And I had post-traumatic stress over, and they gave me 100% disability. And you're like, and I'm not debating them, fine, that's their journey. But I was just kind of like, man, this is getting a little weird. So through a kind of some weird way, I ended up hooking up with a former grunt captain who was in the Marines, and he was now working for the VA. And we had that conversation. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, you've been through all this. I kind of gave him my rap sheet. And he goes, and you're sitting at 80%. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you're getting screwed over. He's like, listen, he's like, you got to understand the way things happen here. He goes, one, he's like, you might have came up on a Friday at 4:30. And the people going through rating your stuff are like, hey, we got them up to 80%. Let's go get a beer. Like, I mean, they're just kind of done. They're gone. He's like, you guys get the short end of the stick, meaning Marine Raiders. He's like, because if a Navy SEAL is being briefed and Army Special Forces is being briefed, when they come in, they make it very clear that this was a Navy SEAL, this was a Army Green Beret. And he's like, naturally, people kind of start thinking, okay, they probably saw some intense stuff. He's like, when they brief Marines, they just go, this is a Marine, and that's it. So no one really knows what's going on or any background to you. And he's like, and honestly, he's like, you know, an old joke about how like the Marine Corps, if you would lose, the gear would go missing at the Mississippi River, like that was coming from the East Coast. He's like, it's kind of the same deal with the medical, like kind of treatment you guys get out there in California. He's like, you guys get a short end of the stick. He's like, the two best VAs that we have in the country are the VA in Boston and the VA up in Palo Alto. And he's like, the only reason why the Palo Alto one does so well, because the Stanford doctors walk across the street and they volunteer time at the VA. So he's like, let me do this. He's like, how fast can you get out here to Boston to get reevaluated? And I'm like, well, you know, like what's the earliest you can get me an appointment? He goes, I can get you an appointment on Friday and another one on Saturday. I'm like, I'll fly out Thursday. He's like, perfect. So I go out there and went in for my psych eval first. And it was kind of funny. Like the original one I did, the guys asked me questions. He's like, have you seen dead people? Have you killed people? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, how are you about that? I'm like, you know, with the enemy, I'm fine. I sleep fine at night about that stuff. And they're like, okay, all well and good. Well, this guy started kind of going down a path with me and talking more about what is post-traumatic stress and really kind of painting the picture. And as we're talking, we're discussing it. He's like, listen, you know, we kind of look at things on a 7 stress level. And he's like, essentially, you hit 6 stressors. He's like, were you sexually harassed? I'm like, no. He's like, that's the only one you're not hitting. He's like, even the units you were in, he's like, where imminent death is there, those things count and start kind of wrapping up on your PTS level. I'm like, all right. So I walk out, you know, we're all done, go meet some friends out that night. And I get a call from my buddy in the VA, and he's like, man, we brought a machine gun to a knife fight. And I'm like, really? He's like, the doctor already called me, and he's like, you're well above 100% already just for mentally what's going on with your PTS and your TBI. And he's like, we haven't even done your physical part yet. I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's a good sign, whatever. Go in the next day. And again, I was talked to in the right way. They're like, listen, don't be a tough guy. We don't need to hear all that. Like, we know what you did. Great. And it's like, if you bend over and you feel a little tweak in your back, wherever it may be, stop. That's where it hurts. Same thing with your knees, all your joints. And so I was really just being 100% honest. As soon as I feel like a little crack in my back, I'm like, that's it. They're like, got it. Measuring out, they're going through, looking at my knees, all that. I was just very candid as soon as I felt any sort of pain. They treated me great. I mean, they're like, hey, you know, the first time I went through with a doctor, they're talking about scars in my body, and they're like, well, that's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, well, my mom might see it differently. You know, like, I didn't have these when I was born, and I got them while I was here in the Marine Corps, so it is kind of a bigger deal. And these guys, when they went through, they're like, yep, got it, did all this stuff. By the time I was done, I got my evaluation. I went from 80%, and if you totaled up my score, it would have been 360% disabled. So from there, I received permanent 100% disabled status and everything that goes along with that. And it's really a big deal because part of what we do at Battle Brothers Foundation when we help out people in terms of maybe getting reevaluated for their VA disability, we have this talk with them. And it's not like, I'm not trying to give you the answers to the test so you can cheat. You just kind of need to get the mindset and understand what you're going into and how you present yourself. And the same thing I talk about, these are the stressors of post-traumatic stress. If you have encountered these, just be honest about it and get it out there. These are like, you know, with your physical ailments, you know, just be very candid, very honest, and you'll get treated with respect and they'll take care of it. And it's a big deal. And, you know, one of the nice things we've done at Battle Brothers Foundation is I helped out a lot of my friends, in particular guys who were at 1st Raider Battalion, because for whatever reason, all these guys are Purple Hearts, but everyone was ended up at 80% disability rating. And you're like, this is just not right. So we would go and get them really evaluated. Next thing you know, they all were coming back 100%. And it's a huge game changer for you and your family. One of my buddies, he lives out in Texas. I mean, they don't have to pay property taxes. And that's kind of how, that's like a big deal in Texas, because that's kind of how they get, there's no state tax. They kind of get you on your property tax. His wife was on the phone crying with me. You fall under Chapter 35 status. So don't worry about the GI bills or anything of that nature. I mean, you get to, I can go back and get another degree right now. My wife can do it, and my kids are taken care of already. So there are so many big things there with that. So that's why I always just stress to people, reach out and talk to people before you go get your disability claim. Understand how the system works and how you need to present it. Understand what you need to look for. Like, I never would have thought about my left calf hurts and there's shrapnel in there. So of course they're going to naturally know what happened. That's not the case. And really sit down and talk with people in terms of what are your actual benefits. Because I'm well taken care of now from the government. My family's well taken care of under their insurance. And it's really been a really great thing. And that, again, that's one of the big things. That's why we started our Battle Brothers Foundation. So one of the things we could do is take care of veterans, coach them up, let them know what they got to do and understand their benefits when they get out. Because listen, no one cares more about what you're going through than yourself. and you're going to be your own biggest advocate, and you need to understand what you have and what your rights are, and it's going to make a big deal. Kind of on that too is like right now, Battle Brothers Foundation, just so people know, if you go the VA, I don't think they accept any more of these like lawyers or for-profit companies that take money from the veteran in order to enhance their disability rating. The Inspector General is not really happy about that. I know there's investigations going on. So what we started to do is we used to pay the money to these firms so we can get the veteran their correct disability rating. We are now in the process of making Battle Brothers into its own VSO, so I can start grabbing people as they're making a transition out of military. We can be there and take care of it. And for me, it was kind of a shorter time frame. It was probably a couple of years. I was at 80% until I went up to 100%. But everyone out there, it's never too late. One of the biggest wins we ever had at Battle Brothers Foundations, we had a Vietnam veteran, Navy, Blue Water Navy. So people don't know what Blue Water Navy is. That's the ones in the gray ships on the ocean, kind of things you would actually picture. Well, they had to transport Agent Orange over to Vietnam. We have some really good pilots, but sometimes they miss target. And there's also this really inconvenient thing called wind. So sometimes the Agent Orange would just kind of float around the area and probably hit places that the powers that be didn't deem they were exposed to Agent Orange. Well, this gentleman was, basically I was almost like carrying him around his house. He's had his back fused a couple of times. He's had multiple brain surgeries. He's in a bad shape. He can barely walk on his own, all that stuff. And we sat down and started working with him. And, Agent Orange wasn't going to be recognized until the following year. And we're like, we're not going to sit around and let this guy wait for another year. So we got in there, and 100% is 100%. And, we got him up to 100% disability through his post-traumatic stress. And as soon as that happened, like, boom, 30-something thousand hit his bank account. They came in the VA like gangbusters, started refurbishing his house, got him the appropriate wheelchairs and everything he needed, and changed his life. And I could never make another cent in my life ever again. That would probably be one of the greatest feelings I ever had in a professional status of helping someone else out, because the guy was just in tears and he's like, you guys changed my life and you saved my life. And that's what it's all about. So if you ever have veterans out there and they're like, hey, I never went through it, or I don't know, hey, get them going. And I'm telling you, once we get Battle Brothers up to a VSO status, probably take another year or so. That's going to be one of our big tenets, and really start taking care of each other, because, these men and women went out, raised their right hand, and signed a blank check payable with their lives. And, not all wounds are visible. So they need to get everything that the country owes them. Not that they went in there to go get VA benefits. Christ, I'd rather be 0% disabled, because all the ailments and pains and things I got to deal with. But we really need to take care of those men and women who did that stuff. So that is my VA tale.
Quite a tale indeed. Thank you very much, Council Member.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Camelford Lifestyle Shop, open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Camelford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Camelford, Ontario.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
We're going to start off with Pearson. Council member, hi, I'm a veteran, and where would I start to investigate starting to do my benefits? Where do I start?
All right. So upon getting out of the military, you're going to have to go through steps and taps, which is separation and transition. And that doesn't apply to a lot of you guys right now, or all of you, but they should sign you up for VA benefits, at least for an initial screening. But if they don't, what you're going to want to do is, I think the best place to start is the va.gov. I put that in the Facebook comments. va.gov is a portal that you can sign up for. I'll bring it up right now. It has, once you're signed into it, it'll have all types of information: healthcare, disability, education, records. Here you can get all of your medical records. So all the veterans that have been out for a little while, if you're not signed up, obviously, or if you've never been seen by the VA, you're not going to have much in the healthcare section. But the important thing about this portal is the disability section. So you're able to the first line down under disability is file a new claim, or file for VA disability, right? And I highly suggest, if you or anybody you know is suffering from anything that can be considered service connected, and this is not just wartime stuff. This is not if you sprained your ankle on a run in formation, in boot camp, and it's still hurting you. As long as you have more than 90 days in the military with a general, sometimes you even less than honorable or other than honorable will still qualify you for benefits. But quite literally, anything that happened to you while you were serving can be possibly related or be seen as in-service connection. In-service connection just means that you got hurt while you're in service. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be doing something heroic while it happens. But because you joined the military and you got hurt while serving in the military, you should qualify for benefits for that disability. Now, with this portal, when filing for a claim for compensation, you're able to go in there and just, let's for example say I want to, my back hurts from forced marches or ruck marches, or carrying too much gear. I fell off a 7-ton or something and tweaked my back. You can go in and under the file for claim for compensation, you can put in a intent to file. Now, you put in this intent to file form. It's very quick. I think I think it's the form's like under 2 or 3 minutes to fill out, and it's very basic, and all you're putting in is I intend to file a compensation claim for my back. Right there, as soon as you submit that, that day is saved. That date is saved. So you have 1 year to either collect information, get a VSO or a service officer, and whatever they determine, whether or not you get, it takes 5 years for them to come up with the disability rating. That date that you filed that that intent to file will be reserved, and you'll get compensation back to that date. So that's really important. It's really simple. You can go on Google and just type in intent to file, and fax it or mail it in if you choose to. If you choose not to go through the VA.gov portal, I highly encourage that. That is something very simple. Get your significant other to do it if you can't do it yourself. And all it really takes is just basic information that you should know or can be found on your DD-214. Along with that, you can get your DD-214. You can request military records on VA.gov. You can get benefits letters. It will show you. You can print out your eligibility for your home loan. It'll show you your education benefits that you're qualified for. And there's just so many things that are easily accessible in VA.gov. I can't stress it. I can't stress it how important it is to get it onto this. If you're not on VA.gov, you're not helping yourself. Another thing is you can call 1-800-827-1000, which is the hotline, which is the benefits hotline that I also put down in the comments, and that will direct you to an operator with the VA. They're open 5 days a week, I think 8 to 8 EST, and the VA has a duty to assist. That is in there. That is in the rule book. They have a duty to assist a veteran up until a higher level review comes into play. So the VA is there to help you when it comes to this. There's a lot of things I'm not going to go into. Once, let's say you get your claim back and it's not what you think you deserve, or it doesn't follow the criteria of the 38 CFR, which the VA is obligated to go through. This 38 CFR is a code of federal regulations that the VA is obligated to follow. Excuse me. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Hopefully you can still hear me.
Yes.
But so they are obligated to follow these guidelines, and a lot of times they don't. And that's when that's a whole, like I said, I'm not going to get into it. I just have to go through a bunch of stuff with reevaluation and stuff after a decade. So, but that's the initial thing. Get in there, either print it out, mail it in, go on VA.gov, and file that intent letter, and that's absolutely, I think that's the first step, and that really does secure your date of your start date of your compensation. So if you fill it out today and you don't get a compensation determination back until for 12 months, and let's say it comes back at 60%, you're looking at a $1,215 a month for the past 12 months, and you'll get that back pay before most of the time before you even get the letter of that states that you got the benefits awarded to you, which is really crazy. So yeah, file that letter of intent and or intent to file, and it gives you some breathing room to get your stuff collected, and it saves that date. It's very important. And when it comes to VSOs, now I would say veteran service organizations, they're very similar in a lot of ways, but service officers that work there within are not all equal. A lot of them, so I was the veteran service officer for the local VFW post up here for 3 years, and I would ask for training. I wouldn't get. There was none available to me, which I found really odd. I mean, my job as a post level veteran service officer was to just fill out forms that I really wasn't, on that level qualified to do for things that were complex, or it was out of my pay grade, really, for what these veterans needed. So I would highly suggest to go into a regional office if you have the luxury of being close to a regional office, or ask around, ask your fellow veterans what service officers that they know have a good track record, or well educated on the ins and outs of VA, and someone that you can relate to, someone that I mean, this is the least important, but it does help with you being able to be willing to share what's going on with your life, because a lot of ways, and a lot of times, we're veterans, we're tough. We like Brian said, you need to show them, you need to explain to them everything that you came out of the service with, and that is very important. It's very important to show, or to try to take advantage of all the things that you otherwise wouldn't be dealing with if you hadn't joined the military. And I can't, like I said, I can't stress it enough, especially just deciding not to sign up for VA or enroll or go for your compensation. Now, I hear this all the time. I hear this, well, somebody else got more messed up than me. I didn't lose any legs. I'm still functional. I can still work. Give those benefits to a veteran that deserves it or needs it more than me. And I hate that. I understand. I appreciate that statement so much. It sounds great and all, but you're actually doing more harm to the system, or the individual veterans, or the veterans as a whole, because you're not allowing for you to be a number in what Senate looks at for budgets, budgeting. If they're the more veterans that are enrolled into VA healthcare, VA benefits, the larger the budget's going to be. So yeah, maybe don't, if you have healthcare outside of the VA, go, and it's great, go use that, but still don't take yourself out of the equation, because it'll only allow for a reason to not give a bigger budget, or the maximum budget that we could potentially get as veterans to go towards a healthcare and better treatment, or better treatment is not a good word for it. to allow for a better experience for the patient through the VA. Yeah, I hope that answers the question, Etienne.
Thank you very much. Yes, it very much did, and was able to give us all an aspect and idea. Next, we're going to go to Councilmember Pluff, who actually has worked in a VSO and has helped veterans. So, hi, Aaron. I'm a new member in the VSO. So, where would you start with me?
Oh, well, welcome aboard. Where I would start, honestly, is I have been to a lot of training, right? I do this for VFW Post 9934 in Dana Point, and I would start by handing you the responsibilities and code of conduct so that you can see what I should be held to. I'd let you know that I was an infantryman in the Marine Corps. I know I served with a guy named Pearson Robert Kennedy Crosby, and I've helped him. But, you know, there's a bunch of things that I need to talk with you about, because I can help you a lot, but I can't do this for you. So, you know, there's very clear guidance, because in my role, I'm a post-service officer, and that's literally the only reason I joined the VFW, is so that I could do this. So it's different than an employee who gets paid to do this. Like in Orange County, California, I can go to the veterans office and talk to a guy who gets paid to do this. But, you know, they're hard to get time with. And, you know, your likelihood of finding that might vary depending on your jurisdiction. But, you know, out here in Southern California, there's lots of help. So, you know, we talk about what to expect and find out where you're at in the process, what you've done, and we kind of triage from there based on what your needs are. But, you know, we talk about where the nearest offices are to get services and things like that. We'll go over the guide for medical claims and see what other things you need to get a claim for. Talk about VA forms, and then we'll talk about how to remit, because much like you guys have touched on, especially Brian, maybe it's just a Marine thing, maybe comment, but words mean things, and you find that out. So it's very interesting how you arrange the words. I think Michael Krowitz could probably attest to how the words are arranged is a big issue. But you know, we could talk about all, you know, we'd list out all the things that you're kind of going through. And, you know, I might even tell you some of the things that I've been through first. You know, I might tell you that I have a torn labrum. I went through the whole Marine Corps with a torn labrum. Nobody identified it. And then, you know, PTSD, I've got herniated discs. I'm chasing some bad guy who didn't want to get caught. And, you know, there's degenerative arthritis and traumatic brain injury from when Heafy got his Purple Heart. And, you know, I've had the rocks hit me from mortars and things like that. And then we could trade stories and, you know, kind of figure out what you're looking for. Identify, you know, what things you got a medical claim. Okay, what kind of issues, which various medical issues, you know, PTSD, would go over that. Some of you guys might be trying to get unemployability, depending on if you're housebound or can't work. And, you know, there's some other more complex things like dependency and indemnity claims. But, you know, if you got TBI or something like that, we can kind of cover that. But, you know, once we kind of set it out, we'd go through the documents. DD 214, you know, do you have any claims previously? We'd literally make a list of the symptoms, you know, just like in boot camp where they teach you, you can either start at your cover, or you can start at your socks, and we'll work our way up or we'll work our way down. You know, that's about the extent of the choice you get some days. But you know, probably easier to start at the feet with combat veterans or someone that's really old. Then we ask about, you know, what things are you getting treated for now? I've been hiding from the VA my whole life, and I've got all kinds of records, but none of them in the VA, or somebody that's brand new. And, you know, if you have no experience with the VA at all, recommend that you go see. Literally get, you know, you're gonna have to make a breach, and you're gonna have to fight your way through the tanglefoot and the obstacles and the barricades that they put up. So at that point, if you're seeing your own doctor, you're gonna say, okay, you know, Dr. Feelgood, I need a letter that says it's more likely than not that these ailments come from my service, directly attributed to my service. So kind of like what Brian said, you know, like lo and behold, Aaron blacked out when he crashed his bicycle at 12 years old, but he also was in IED activity and was like 5 feet away. So, you know, I did have trauma before, but you know, when IEDs blow up next year, doesn't help either. So we can get the letters from the doctor, the progress notes. You know, the doctors are gonna side with you most of the time, especially if they're civilian, because, you know, it's pretty substantial evidence if you've been in combat, things like that, that you're gonna have substantial injuries. You want to assemble all your medical records, all the military records. Another thing is buddy letters, and you can actually write your own statement in support of claims. You can have your spouse write a statement in support of claims. You can have your family write a statement in support of claims. I had Lance Corporal Joseph Heafy write a statement in support of my claim, and I wrote a statement in support of his claim, and he is Purple Heart recipient. So it's you know, some of you older guys might find it therapeutic if you could touch base with some of those guys. And you know, you can input studies, you know, things change. You might send some stuff into the VA that's new, and it stimulates a different kind of mindset or things like that. You know, if you're applying for PTSD, you're going to have to talk about how it affects your quality of life. You know, how the wife or the kids. But you know, let me just say a quick statement on how to write your narrative. It's essentially, you have to articulate the issues, how it's impacted your quality of life. So, you know, every day I wake up with pain, you know, think of the top to bottom. So from the wake up to go to sleep, and does it wake you up at night? So in the morning, I deal with pain as soon as I wake up. I have to take painkillers to do this. And then as it makes me feel ill, so I can't eat properly. So you get discouraged, and you know, you have to put those things in. But your statement, it's just the incident occurred on October 29th, 2004 at about 1 a.m. Our platoon got hit, and the ID went off, and that's when I sustained the injury. Before service, my life was like this. After discharge, my life is like this. A, B, and C happens. Some examples of my PTSD or how I interact with my family, A, and at work, B, and at my group, C. You can talk about drug usage if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but some people do. And then you talk about what your treatment is, how it's impacted you, and then you do a closing statement. And the similar thing for your spouse. And, you know, my spouse letter was particularly good because I knew my spouse before combat and after combat, and her letter carried a lot of weight. There's a litany of forms that you can fill out, and depending on the items that you identified in our laundry list of items to take care of, we get all them forms wrangled up. But once you file that initial kind of, what is it called? The notice to intent file claim, that's your flag, your little guide on in the ground. And then essentially it opens this window in the VA where there's about a year. It might be 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, something like that, about a year, where the ball's in your court to go to the appointments, gather the information, do more research, send in more things. And then about 9 months, they're going to say, hey, we sent you a letter saying that we're going to close this out soon. So whatever you got, it's like the last call, and send it. So it takes a long time. Everyone's different. Your experience may vary, but you know, my VFW doesn't have a bar, doesn't have a canteen, social club. We only do helping the community, and they have helped over 6,000 veterans get their claims. And so, like, I'm learning from these guys, and you know, there's no alcohol involved. It's just about helping people. So these guys are in it for the right reason, and you know, kind of bringing it out to close it out here. You know, try to direct you to the right resources. The VA has gotten better. You know, there's good people to follow on LinkedIn, but you know, we just have to make a list, and I might tell you to think about it for a week and come visit me in a week or two, because we might add something on or not really be able to articulate something, or you think that it really isn't there, and we can just kind of get what you think you need, where you want to go, and then we help you get there. But you know, the only thing I can't do is do all the stuff for you, and no one should ever be doing it for you. It's it is going to come out of that. But that's all I got.
Well, thank you for that. That was a deeper dive, and one that is needed so people can understand what happens when you experience going to a VSO. That personal touch helps. However, in the end, it's still reliant on you to follow through, so that they can make sure that somebody isn't ripping off the government because they realize that people are assisting you with the situation as opposed to doing it for you. So it's still heavily reliant upon you. I'm going to go to Pearson real quick, and then we'll move on to Michael Krawitz. You had a response?
Yeah. I just wanted to touch one thing that I don't think was brought up yet was getting service connection was something that could be deemed a 0% service connection can be used. Is very useful in a lot of ways. So let's say, like, you know, you did get hurt in the military. It healed, but it has the potential of flaring up in the future, right? So I have several 0% service connections from things that happened to me. Like my left shoulder, I screwed it up a little bit, but it's 0%. So that allows me to ask for a increase or reevaluation if my shoulder ever starts getting worse, and I then don't have to prove service connection at that point. So that's something. Even though it doesn't hurt you right now, but you can show that you got injured in the military you can make that nexus or that link that yeah, I sprained my ankle, I sprained my shoulder. Here's the medical documentation. It doesn't bother me right now, but that could qualify you to document. It could document that you did get injured. It's not something that is bothering you right now, but it is a recognized injury in service that the VA will put down in your disability benefit sheet.
Thank you for that clarification, council member. This time we're going to go over to council member Michael Crowitz. Council member Crowitz is a peacetime veteran who has the benefits and has gone through the VA system as well. So he can speak to that. And needless to say, he has a lot of knowledge on this. Council member.
Yeah, man, thanks. So I was trying to think kind of of all the different kind of paths that I could take in my mind. What would be the thing that I could say that would be something that you're likely not to hear from somebody else, and be something that you could actually use, might be interesting information. And two things jump to mind. One is that when I started working as an activist, as an activist working on medical cannabis access in the veteran stakeholder group, there was no veteran stakeholder group. And I think it's important to note that the military veterans in the United States have not only been there throughout the entire cannabis movement, but have been strategic and critical leaders of the cannabis movement throughout its entire lifetime. And you're talking about some of the most notable activists that without of which we wouldn't have, hemp movement, wouldn't have a cannabis movement, wouldn't have medical marijuana, etc. Going back to Louis Armstrong and Tim Leary, Jack Herer, Dennis Perone. There's such a great cadre of military vets that many of you don't even know as military vets. They just know them as sort of heroes and icons of our past. But we're in great company. And basically what happened was, as a military veteran, you experienced what ATN talked about. You talk to anybody in the government, you talk to anybody at the VA about cannabis, and they start literally doing the thing in the ears and saying, it's illegal under federal law, I can't even talk about it. And it wasn't until we got the VA policy back in 2010 that we were able to really create and what we now see as the Veteran Stakeholder Group emerge with 35 different veteran service organizations working on various aspects of cannabis and psilocybin and psychedelics and treatment and work, jobs and security. And oh man, it's just an amazing field of veteran involvement as a stakeholder group. But when I first spoke at the New York at the UN in 1998, I was just speaking as a military veteran of my experience. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And the other thing I would say is rather interesting. I told a buddy of mine about government in general, that the government will always give you two choices. They'll give you the choice that benefits them only, and then they'll give you the choice that benefits you and them. They will never give you the third choice, which is benefits you and not them. Right? So, and there are things that you can do, sort of voting with your feet, that aren't written down in any books. And my experience, I think, really captures one of them. So this is what happened. I was out in Omaha, Nebraska. I needed a hip. My hip was bad. It was bad enough, the secondary to getting broken in that accident I had in the Air Force. It was just deteriorated, needed to be replaced. And I was trying to think of the right question to ask my doctor. And to this day, I give myself credit for asking a really great question. I asked the doctor, if your mom needed this artificial hip, because I knew a lot of moms, elderly people were doing these hips, not so many young people. I was like 20 something, right? But I asked him, if your mom needed this hip and you had unlimited budget to do it, where would you send your mom? And he thought about it for a minute and he said, well, I would send her to the New York Hospital for Special Surgery. They're world renowned on this. So I literally packed up and went to New York, showed up at the New York regional office of VA and asked, I want to be seen at the Hospital for Special Surgery in the Bronx, in New York. And they said, no, you have to go to the VA facilities first. And they sent me to Brooklyn. They sent me to New Jersey. And they finally sent me to the Bronx VA. And in the Bronx VA, the orthopedics doctor had a hospital for special surgery, Cornell Hospital for Special Surgery patch on his arm. And he was a professor of orthopedics teaching, and that's a teaching facility there. I didn't know that. And I found where I wanted to be. And I got my hip put in, and then when I had it updated, the ball had moved. And I found that the world's renowned, most leading experts at that time, when I needed to have it fixed and updated, was down in North Carolina, Duke Research Triangle, Duke University. And I actually had my hip done by a Duke University professor right across the bridge there at the VA in Durham, North Carolina. So this is something that nobody will probably ever tell you that you can do, but if you have the ability to do it and sort of get yourself where the expertise is, there's fantastic expertise in the VA system.
Yes, I've heard good stories. One, for example, my stepfather, who was World War II with the 317th, 101st Airborne, he was actually told that his records had burned up in, apparently there was a great fire in St. Louis at the records holders in the 50s. And he was told that his records were lost. It turned out upon investigation, they were able to find them. And he was treated like a king, needless to say, with great reverence, amazing respect. Once he finally did get into the VA system in his 80s. But at the same time, it just shows that even that many years later, you know, he could still get his access and his benefits. And he was taken care of very well, including a military burial with which the Comanche came out, and he was honorary Comanche as well. So it was a joint ceremony, no pun intended. It was pretty badass. Councilmember Crosby, you had a response, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to distinguish between the two different departments in the two of the departments in the VA. You have the Veterans Benefits Administration, and you have the Veterans Healthcare Administration, and the gatekeepers are the benefits the benefits side. Once you clear that, once you get service connected, you're really in it. You have, depending on your level of disability, the flood doors are really open to accessing all the great healthcare benefits that the VA does offer. A lot of the VAs are by medical institutions. The Philadelphia VA is right down the road from UPenn, several other universities, and there is truly great healthcare once you get through that barrier that is showing the benefit side that you are you qualify for these. Thank you.
Right on. Councilmember Krawitz, you wanted to respond.
Well, I just wanted to counter that with a little bit of harsh reality. When I went to the Brooklyn VA and I visited their clinics and went behind the scenes in the orthopedic department and stuff, I actually felt a bit like I was walking in some sort of set for a movie from like 1950s, you know, from coming back from Korea or something like that. And the facilities there in the Bronx weren't a hell of a lot better. We had a brownout in the city, and it was like 100 and something degrees in the room during the day, and then drop down when the AC would come on at night down into the like 50s or something like that at night, because it was overcompensating, and it was pretty crazy. The experience, and it, just to not leave out Durham, the facility there was in dire need of repairs and updates. And I remember the toilet in the open bathroom there off the hall right down from my ward, when I went to sit on it, was moving on the floor. And it's really not a good thing to have toilets that are not fixed to the hardware.
Right on. Well, this has been a journey of
Michael,
Go ahead, Pearson.
I'm just curious what year that was.
So
Was that recent?
Oh yeah, so it's not recent, but these are things that I would imagine exist throughout the system in a random fashion. So this was in the 1980s for the brownouts and the New York City experience, and then in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, I guess it was 97 for Durham. I've had my current revision of my hip since 90, I guess it was 97. Quite a while.
Yeah, that is quite a while. Council Member Byrne, then Council Member Pluff.
Thanks, Etienne. I just want to go back in time again and just mention to who's ever watching this on public, broadcast. Back in the day, when we were doing counseling, as we're talking about here with the VA, et cetera, we found that 1 out of 5 people that walked in the door and said they were a Vietnam vet were not. They were what we came to call wannabes. And when we, again, as counselors started to investigate, what are these guys doing? What the hell's going on? Is it stolen honor? A little bit, maybe here and there. But mostly they wanted the benefits. So what I'm just here to tell the audience is the gentlemen that are talking to you tonight get these benefits because they truly are veterans. And we know that because in the military, there's this form called a DD-214. And if you don't have a DD-214, don't show up. But if you have a DD-214, you're a whole different category. Please show up. These kind of guys, Pearson, they'll help you. And there's some good stuff there. So don't be reluctant. Thank you.
Councilmember Pluff.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate the support, Al. It means a lot coming from you. Last thing I'll say is I've probably worked with veterans from every war in work doing this VSO stuff, but my favorite one is the Korean War veteran who is a Marine Corps infantryman. And he told me that after the armistice was signed, they were still hooking and jabbing up in the mountains for a few months after still in combat after everyone in the world thought that combat was over. And that's why Bill Clinton gives all those veterans a special thing when they die. But when he got out of the military, he swore that place off, I think, kind of like Michael Green said, he just wanted to get the hell out of there. But his paperwork had the wrong name, and it had the wrong numbers, and it had the wrong person. And this guy was 91 years old, literally twice as old as me. He came in and he was asking for help to get his paperwork changed. And he was about ready to give up. And, like grunt to grunt, I couldn't convince him. And then this other guy there, that was Marty, he convinced him because he's like, what about when you pass away, your wife is going to have to unscrew all this. And the guy sat down and he tried to work on all his paperwork, but he was getting frustrated. So the one thing I could pass to anyone listening is sign up, and you don't ever have to talk to them again once you get this stuff in the books. You can just leave it, but you have to get on record. Otherwise, there's going to be things, just think of like Agent Orange or, toxic exposure or something. There's going to be stuff that comes later, and you got to get it taken care of. And every single person I help wishes they did it 40, 30, 20, 10 years ago. So do it now.
Thank you for those wise words, Council Member. Council Member Armstrong.
I just really quickly want to thank everybody. I know there are tens of thousands of veterans like me who separated from the Army or the Navy or from any service and didn't try to get their benefits. I have learned a tremendous amount from everyone who spoke tonight. I want to thank you guys for continuing to serve your brothers and sisters. And like Al said, if you have a DD-214 and you raise your right hand, then you definitely, they can't stop you from at least going to ask for these things, see what the process is. Even if it's a pain in the ass, we should all get the benefits that we deserve. So that's all I have. Thanks, gentlemen.
Well, needless to say, I kind of did this one because I was a bit selfish. I want to learn these things because I got to go through them. But at the same time, you know, I thank you all because I did learn a lot here today. I have got some places to go and some things to start with, and I know where everything I need to get is. So I guess I got to just put up and start shutting up. So I'll start doing that. But I want to thank each and every one of our council members for this discussion on VSOs and your benefits. So I'd like to thank council members Wade Laughter, Michael Green, Brian Buckley, George Armstrong, Michael Crowitz, Al Byrne, and Pearson Kennedy Crosby, and Aaron Pluff, who just had to bounce out. Thank you all very much. This has been our V.A.C. Roundtable number 33, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with number 34. Again, thank you all very much. Just to leave you all again, that website is the www.va.gov. And to call for your benefits, again, it's 1-800-827-1000. That's 800-827-1000. So thank you all again once for your time and your consideration, and thank you, fellow veterans, for the work we do for that you do to help our fellow brothers and sisters to make their lives a little brighter. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at Pace Radio.